Everybody's got a story. You just have to listen. Hola, I'm Joe Pardavila, and this is Good Listen, and today, Sapphire Howell tells her story. I often get asked by folks starting out, how do I grow my following, or how do I get people to listen to my podcast? I usually respond by cribbing the old Nike slogan, just do it. We often overthink and suffer paralysis by analysis, but sometimes you just have to start. Sapphire Howell is an actress, model, entrepreneur who's achieved her dreams through hard work. Beginning her modeling career as a teen, Sapphire's ambition soon led her to wider opportunities in adult entertainment and technology. Across all of her ventures, Sapphire brings infectious optimism and inspirational drive. Let's find out how she did it. Sapphire, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I am excellent. And so I hate to start by asking about this, but I'm always fascinated by religion. I grew up Catholic. My parents were from Spanish countries. So if you're from a Spanish country, Latino, you're going to be Catholic. But I discovered that you were a Mennonite. And I'm always fascinated by the sects of the Christian religion. And I know there's been movies and documentaries about this, but can you describe for folks not familiar? Because I think immediately people, when they talk about Mennonites, they jump right to the Amish, which I know it's a different sect altogether. When I bring that up to you, like your childhood as a Mennonite, what's like the first thing that come to mind?
When I was very young, that's when we were super, super strict. And then once my parents kind of got divorced, then my mom and my parents were kind of like, F this, let's not, you know what I mean? So my memories are just strict, Bible school, just strict prayer. And my memories are just that they're man-made rules. Like that's really what my memories are. And every time I try to explain to people what Mennonite is, I just say a less strict Amish, but just as strict as any other religion, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, it makes total sense. And I've read a lot about this lately because I've been nerding out about it, how like so much that we live in today is really all made up. The idea of money, religion, God, that a dude more than likely made those things up. So I'm always fascinated by how that works and like your upbringing and the way you left that to go in a career that was completely divergent from that religion. So thank you for indulging me. I want to talk about AI a little bit because I always try to avoid AI when I can because I know it's one of these exhausting things that people just constantly talk about on business podcasts. And I know you're involved in it, but I want to get your take on it. We're recording this the week that the Taylor Swift AI controversy broke out. I don't know if you're familiar, but people have been taking photos. Yeah, people are taking photos of Taylor Swift like in her concert and then making X-rated versions of those photos. And she's looking to sue. It went viral, obviously, as you can imagine, on Reddit. What's your relationship with the AI? And I know this is going to be a big part of the future of your career. It's or one of the sort of the sectors of what you're going to be dealing with. But AI and the adult industry, and I know as long as being a teenager that since Photoshop's been around, people have manipulated images of celebrities and whatnot, but AI is taking it to a different game. When you hear about stories like this, Taylor Swift going viral because someone's decided to make X-rated versions of a photo, what does that make you feel like? Because the fact of, and really, I'm really about the loss of control. Like you literally have no control of who you are in the internet.
I don't like it. I actually think that it's disgusting to do to someone without their permission. And the problem with AI, it looks so real. It looks like identical. I feel like it's better than Photoshop. Like it looks so real. And I think that it's really just vulgar to do to someone I obviously didn't see the images, but I can only imagine what they're going to do next. And I don't agree with that because I feel like whether it's AI or it's really you, when it comes to adult content, there needs to be consent. It is all about consent. And I'm surprised, it sounds like she's suing them. I was going to say, I'm surprised there's no legal action. And I would do exactly the same. I think AI is such a big thing and it's where the world is really going. And you need to follow trends and stay on top of it. But you need to always be respectful.
Yeah, no, it's frightening. And we're just scratching the surface. Like if this was an iceberg, we're just like at the tip of it. And I want to get into how you're involved in AI, but before we get there, you've had such a fascinating journey from, obviously leaving your religion to dancing and working in the adult industry. And then you've become a bit of an entrepreneur. So I'm curious, the entrepreneurial bug and entertainment. I've always felt that entertainers, even though they don't want to admit it, inherently have to be entrepreneurial. Otherwise,
Absolutely.
people are going to take advantage of you. And I know a lot of, and I have a lot of friends like this who are the artist type, like, I don't want to talk about money. I don't want to, well, listen, if you don't want to talk money, that's cool, but you're going to be broke. So talk to me about how you embraced entrepreneurship along the path that you've taken since you left the religion.
So I think that it really started happening, obviously, when I started stripping, right? And I feel like stripping was such a big thing and people made a lot of money at one point, and then they went to like webcamming, or then they went to adult, or that then now it's at OnlyFans and all those kind of things. So you have to keep following it. And I think that's kind of how I became an entrepreneur, by you have to just keep progressing. I like it. I want to make money. Like, it makes me happy to make money. It makes me happy to see my savings go up at such a young age. And I don't know how I can't not continue to just make new stuff. I don't understand people who don't want to do that, where they're just so in love with what I understand that too. Like people in music, they're really in love and they sign these contracts where they don't get any money out of any of it. And that sounds great, but like, what type of business plan is that?
It's so funny to say that, because it reminds me of, I've done a bunch of podcasts with doctors who are doctors, entrepreneurs. The recurring theme in medical school is they don't teach you anything about business plans or running a business, running an office. And so then they get out of medical school severely in debt, and they're like, now I'm my own boss. I've got to go rent an office. I got to get a staff. When did you learn about the importance of money management, or maybe even like building a team around you? Because that's one of the things, no matter what you're doing, where you came from, or you're a doctor out of medical school, the idea of being able to embrace this relationship with money, which I often talk about in this podcast. I'm very uncomfortable talking about money. I don't know why. Maybe it's just my background, but can you give me like an insight in terms of like how you were able to take it from becoming an entrepreneur? But one thing's becoming an entrepreneur, but the other thing is being good with your money. I
think it comes from my childhood, coming from such a poor family, and I have an anxiety about money. Like, I want to make sure I always have long-term, like always have money, no matter what. You can get yourself into any situation. You could physically get hurt where you're not capable of doing your job anymore. And if you don't save all your money, you're really screwed. And I don't ever want to feel like that. I might be overboard with it, but it comes from my childhood. And I went through a stage where when I was a stripper, I spent my money. You know what I mean? So then I went through that. I feel like sometimes you kind of have to a little bit enjoy your money, and then at a young age realize that you really, really need to save. Like, I feel like people 18, 19, I think it's really normal. I don't know about you when you were 18, 19, did you spend all your money because you didn't really have any?
Sapphire, it's so funny to say that, because as different as we are, different career paths, different upbringings, I was the same way. Like, to me, I am more afraid of homelessness than cancer. And I know that sounds weird, but that's where I come from. I don't know what it is. There's this bug in me, maybe growing up in New York and growing up around it and seeing the poor people and putting myself in that situation and trying to like create a narrative in my brain of how did this person get there? What did I do right that they did wrong, or what happened in their life?
Yeah.
So it's just so funny that you have that same feeling towards money as well. Like, to me, that just scares the living shit out of me.
Me too. I don't ever want to be in this. I've been close to situations like that. I don't know about you, but even that can really shock you. I also see the way other people live, and I'm like, okay, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be where that person is. I analyze people a lot and where they're at, and I use it to my benefit by being like, okay, I'm not going to spend all my money on these designer things. And you know what I mean? I have a lot of nice stuff, but I don't think wasting your money is beneficial at all. If you're going to spend money, at least try to spend it on something that could help you in the end.
Yeah.
I'm not saying don't enjoy it, because that's a big thing too. I had to learn that also, where I'm like, okay, I'm saving all this money and I'm not enjoying it. And then I feel like there's kind of like predators and people like that are like, oh, she makes a lot. Let me try to like steal or like con her into stuff. And the more money you make, the more people will do that. So that's kind of how I learned. I was like, if people are going to do this to me, at least should get myself a few nice things, and try to enjoy it.
Yeah. I mean, to me, I equate money as freedom. That's the one thing.
Absolutely.
To me, that's the one word. Like, people always say, oh, money doesn't solve everything. People with money have the same problems. I totally get that. But the one thing that you cannot deny is the freedoms that money lends you, whether it's living in a nice neighborhood, living in a nice house, being able to employ people to help you along your way. Like,
yeah.
That's one of those things people don't like to talk about when it comes to wealth and money. It's like, that's the key. the Jeff Bezos of the world, he makes more money than God every single minute, yet all that does is it just affords him freedom to like live on a yacht with his girlfriend. You know, it's like, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, I mean, it makes life a lot easier. You know, it doesn't make life peaceful. It can bring more like drama into your life, but it in certain ways it can make life a lot easier. If you get yourself into a situation, money can help. I'll say it. Like, I really think that people should save their money. I want to almost come out with like a saving business plan for people, you know? I was just telling someone the other day, I was talking to her and I said, why don't you just set up an account and don't look at it and put one of your incomes there and don't look at it in 6 months and just see how much is in there and buy yourself a house or put a down payment, you know, or a year or 2 years. But you got to save.
Well, who knows? It could be another job. You've had multiple jobs, Sapphire. Maybe a financial advisor.
Yeah, advisor.
All right. We started earlier talking about technology, and you really embraced technology along your career path. And obviously with OnlyFans, everyone reads the stories every day, how people quit their jobs to just create content on OnlyFans. But folks not familiar with it and only know like the salacious headlines of the teacher by day, OnlyFans by night person. How has it worked for you? How profitable can it be for folks? And I know not all content creators are created equal. We're only seeing the splashy headlines, but obviously it's worked for you. If you don't mind, take me back to like when you first heard about it and then when you started seeing traction with it.
I first heard about it when it came out, and I've always had a profile, and it wasn't until COVID when everybody stayed at home and nobody really had anything else to do except for like talk to people online. And so that's when I really saw a dramatic amount of money, like just difference in money coming in. And it actually got me out of mainstream adult videos because I started to lose money by going to set for hours instead of just making content at home. But I always say that I started it with a fan base, and I feel like people think they could just make any type of subscription platform profile and think that they're just going to make money. You have to secure a fan base. You have to. Otherwise, you're going to put content out there that could risk other jobs. And I don't agree with that. Like, you got to go full force and make as much money as you possibly can. And I honestly think unless you're wanting to put in the work to make a ridiculous amount, I don't think it's worth people's time. It's very, very hard to be in the 1%. You have to put it. I mean, this is like 7 years of effort that I put in. And people need to know that because I think that they see celebrities on it, but the celebrities come with a fan base that they can promote to. And I don't think that that's translated to people.
Yeah. And also what's not translated to people is the amount of work that you were talking about. The fact that no matter what happens, how you're feeling that day, guess what? You've got to create content that week. Maybe you're feeling down in the dumps for whatever reason, relationships, business, whatever, you're being paid for content. And if you're not doing it and don't have that mindset, like when people always ask me for advice about podcasting, it's like, obviously treat it as a hobbyist first because you're not going to make money out of it, but treat that hobby like a job. You've got to record a podcast that week, even though you may not be feeling it, because that's how you're going to grow, and that your mindset grasp the idea of like, I'm a creator and creators need to create. They can't just sit on their ass and expect people to pay or listen to them every once in a while. You've got to create habits. And obviously you mentioned the fact that you had a fan base going in, but the growth of the fan base, that's where you see the real money, right? Once you're able to start with that, then you're able to grow out. How many subscribers do you think you've had at your peak on there?
Like 30,000.
And with 30,000, that number sounds pretty impressive. That translates to real money.
It does. I there's a lot of people, majority on them just want to subscribe, just want to pay, the $5.99. I always change what I set mine at, but they always want to pay that small amount. But there's a good amount that will actually buy content. And those fans actually will come to anything that I promote. That's why I was saying it's so necessary to have a fan base, because it doesn't matter where I go. It doesn't matter if I promote a milkshake, they'll buy it. You can even put podcasts up on there. I've seen people do, and they've actually made money.
Yeah, no, but it's really that on-demand culture that OnlyFans provides that we're kind of all used to, whether it's your TV, movies, your podcast. People want to have their content on demand, and OnlyFans does that. And one of the things that OnlyFans does too is you build the community. And you mentioned the fact your base. It will do they'll buy a milkshake they have. And I always talk to folks about community versus audience. People always like, I want the biggest audience possible. I'm like, no, you don't. Eventually you might, but when you're starting out and you're growing, you have to start with a community that will do anything that you want. I wrote about this in my book, Sapphire. Like, Planet Fitness versus Peloton. Planet Fitness is incredibly popular, but you don't see people talking about Planet Fitness on social media. You don't see them saying,
right.
Hey, went to Planet Fitness today. But that friend of yours that's the Peloton freak, they're going to post every day. Hey, ran 10 miles on my Peloton treadmill. Hey, did 5 miles on my Peloton bike. So building that community is super huge. When did you realize the importance of community?
Right from the very beginning. I really knew the importance of brand, like creating a brand, creating an identity. It didn't have to be exactly who I was, but I did know that the fans need a brand, and I did that right away. At 18, I was like, what's my brand going to be? And it was just young, sweet, and flirty, which is easy. And it really worked.
You know what I love about stories like yours, Sapphire, is like people go and spend a lot of money on college education, MBAs to figure out the importance of branding. And you stumbled upon it, I guess, or proactively stumbled upon the importance of brand. And you did it. Tell me about the Elsa Jean app where folks can sort of date you in this artificial world.
I'm really excited about it. So I have an app coming out. Like you said, it's kind of where people can date me. They can send flowers. They can send, like, through the app, you know what I mean? They'll buy flowers and send them to me. We've even talked about like good morning text or something like that, being able to pop right up to the person's phone from the app, or say the person says something rude to me, it will pop back up with something like, I didn't like the way you know what I mean? Like actual relationship. And I want that for people. I feel like everybody talks about wanting to feel appreciated and have some type of like affection from somebody. And I think it's just so important. That's why I wanted to do it. And I think that, again, AI and all these things, it remembers, what that person likes, what I like, and it's just automatic after that.
And so how is your involvement with it? Because I know you're not writing the code and all that stuff.
Yeah, no.
Tell me about how does someone, because I'm sure, this is the first or maybe the second of many type projects like this where celebrities will use artificial intelligence to connect with fans. So I think the first thing when high leverage individuals who want to get involved is like, what do you need from me? Like, how much time investment is this? Like, tell me about a little bit behind the scenes, what kind of involvement you've had to sort of create this AI avatar of yourself.
It doesn't take that much time. Just a couple of like Zoom calls, you know what I mean, with the team and everything. But I mean, I want to pick the way my avatar looks. I want to make sure it looks exactly like me. I want it to make sure that it speaks exactly the way that I do and knows everything about me. And that takes time. I just want them to have it to be as close as it can. And it does take a lot of involvement. I have Sugar World coming out too, which is another AI thing. And I went into a room full of, I want to say it was hundreds of little cameras. And they take every little photo of you. And that does take time, and then you have to speak into something so it sounds like you. But all of that's so fun.
You're like a Marvel superhero, right? You're like,
yeah.
You're like doing exactly, you and Robert Downey Jr. are like the same person, essentially.
Yeah. I mean, it takes time, but not really. A couple of days, a couple of weeks, and then checking back in with people. I really like to stay on top of my brand to make sure I have full control over it. A lot of times it's easy to hand people the control and it just doesn't end up being you. I think that's how their brands start to fail, is when they give other people too much control. You can have people help you and help guide you, but you're the 100% the one in control. Make sure it looks like you, make sure it's exact, make sure you love it. Any product that you put out, you gotta love. You gotta want to promote.
That's awesome. And I'm not the only podcaster in this conversation. You also host a podcast called Heartbreakers. I guess, why podcasting? Because a lot of what you've done has been the visual medium. Why was going the audio route a way for you to connect with your community?
So I actually was doing Twitter Spaces for NFTs. I wanted to really try to engage in that community because I didn't know it and I needed to learn a lot. So I actually people started to like write it and really help me. And then I liked the Twitter spaces. I liked talking on them. And so I started giving, people were already asking me about relationship advice, just in general. I would get random tweets, random questions, and I would always try to answer them. So the Twitter space, I just started answering the questions. And I was like, well, we might as well do video. We might as well do a podcast. And they really were asking for it. And why not? Another thing to work on. It's done really well. Again, following the trends.
And so podcasting, how different is it in terms of connecting with those folks? Is it just another layer to it? Because it feels like you have a multi-pronged approach to connecting with the people that follow you.
Yeah, I always want to make sure I have some type of connection with them. That's how I keep my fan base. So the days that we record, we always try to do one session where we actually go live. That way people can ask their questions right then and there. We also have a hotline for people to call. And I'm very interactive on Instagram. So that's how I kind of keep the people, the community, tight.
That's awesome. That's great. All right. So we talked about the past, the present. What's the future looking like? Because beauty's fickle. It's like we don't look the same we looked yesterday.
I know.
You probably know better than I do. I'm not much to look at. But what do you think about your career in terms of the future? Because, obviously a lot of your fame comes from the fact of the way
Beauty.
you look.
I know.
And this would be me. Like, again, me being in your shoes, I'd be like thinking about every day, like, oh my God, what am I going to look like in my 50s? What am I looking like in my 60s? Do you think about stuff like that?
Every day, all the day long. I was just thinking yesterday, I work out every day, and the fans are not nice about aging. I'm not going to lie. They really, truly believe that, I don't know what they believe, but some are very confused on aging. It's been almost 10 years since I've been around, and I know that I look at people 10 years ago and they don't look the same, especially from 18 to, later 20s, mid 20s. And it gives me anxiety. I'm a female. Like, I know that beauty is a big part of it. I don't know how to, stop myself from aging. Aging is just part of it. I mean, I have the anxiety. I know that eventually I won't be as beautiful, and I need to come up with a business plan to replace that. I don't have one yet. I do know that I want to use my social media as best as I can for financial gain. That's where, TikTok, all of them, advertising, Snapchat, you get paid. I guess the more I age, the more I can maybe get deals doing different things that follow whatever age I'm at.
I think one thing to remember is, like, beauty is like beauty. Like, people are still going to be beautiful in their 50s, 60s, 70s. It's just, like you mentioned, some people can't register that's how that works. They think that people are, like, trapped in a certain, like Leonardo DiCaprio on Titanic is the same person who should be now, 30 years later. And we're not. We're all aging different ways. So, I hate asking those kinds of questions, but I feel like a huge part of your industry is just the looks about it. It's as unfortunate. It's almost like it's a double-edged sword, obviously, right? It's unfortunate and fortunate that it's one of the things that you kind of have to deal with. And you mentioned this, and without digging too deep into it, but the internet could be a vast wasteland of, like, cruel people. You've made a big chunk of your career, thankfully, because of the internet, but you're still going to deal with what we call trolls. How do you turn that off? Like, that's the one thing, like, I would have trouble dealing with, just like the amount of people and what they could say. And I'm sure for you, probably a majority of it is a lot of positivity because it's folks that are subscribing to you, fans of you, but you're going to get the typical person who's going to not be so nice. So how do you deal with that?
I was actually very bullied in high school. It caused me to actually graduate 2 years early, and it was very traumatizing to me, but I believe that it really prepared me for the life that I live now. And also, I'm part of a generation where there was always social media. There was always Facebook and all those things, and I'm used to it from whenever I had, like, 13, I guess you would say, whenever that social media came out. I remember having, like, Instagrams and stuff at, like, 13, 14, and everybody was always mean, and it prepared me for where I'm at now. How I kind of like to have my social media is very positive. I stay very on top of the negative comments. If I do get negative comments, they almost look like an outsider, and my fans actually will, and the positive people, before I even see it, will jump on it. So it's hard for me to be upset, when they look weird. What's more upsetting for me is when it's another female. I'm not going to lie. It just feels off to me. And I think that's where I'm kind of like, man, and I will comment back. I'll be like, come on, that's not what we do to other females. Like, we don't put each other down. And again, they look like an outsider. They do look like the crazy one. I think that's how people should keep their social media. Keep it very positive. You also have to be a positive person. Try not to talk about negative things because it allows other people to come and be negative. Also, you have to remember it's your social media. It's not theirs. You know what I mean? They're coming to your page to be rude. There was one girl talking about, she was like, I forget her name, but she was like, I don't want to be a part of your mental breakdown that you're having on my, profile. And I kind of was like, you know what? That's true. Like, I don't want to be a part of what you're bringing to me. I'm just going to delete it.
No, it's great. And it's funny because I always feel like we don't change, but we can evolve. Like, we can become better versions of ourselves. But as much as we want to be different from when we were kids, like, I was a fat kid growing up. And so to me, I've got that fat kid mentality. And I know you're not supposed to use that term, but to me, I own it. I'm like, that's the way I was. And I'm still super sensitive about, like, I'll always have that many decades after the fact, but you just can't shake it. So in a way, your childhood kind of prepared that armor, sort of how I use humor to deflect. And in a way, your childhood prepared you for what you're doing today.
Yes, oddly enough. It did.
Well, that's awesome. And for folks who are not familiar with you, want to become part of your community, what's like your best, and to part of the phrase, like, gateway drug? Like, what are the baby steps for people to connect, find out more about you? Where should they look?
Honestly, on my social media, where people hate on me. I'm just kidding. But yeah, on my Instagram, I promote everything that I'm doing constantly. That's the easiest thing because I'm always doing something new. And if people just follow me, you could just see it's Elsa Jean official once a week. I try not to, and that's another thing with my social media. I try not to over promote. I think that's annoying. The fans don't like that either. Whenever I'm doing something new and exciting, that I'm always truly involved with whatever I'm promoting. I will not promote something that I don't feel confident for the people to be subscribing or buying. And my fans do know that.
And it's Elsa Jean official. And it's funny, it reminds me of, I remember Scott Disick, one of the Kardashian people, many, many years ago, when this Instagram sort of influencer marketing thing came about. He got paid to post something, I don't know, it was like a supplement. And since he was so detached from it, he posted the photo and copy and pasted the email from the marketing company. People are like, dude, like, are you not even paying attention? So I'm glad that you are paying attention. And one last thing about your Instagram, 2.6 million followers. I have nowhere near that. I have a couple thousand if I'm lucky. Do you feel, and I always ask this of folks that have like very large followings, do you stress about what you put on because you're like, my God, there's so many eyeballs going to see this. It's not like just, some kid who's just starting out an Instagram page and like, okay, I'm going to put like 10 posts a day or whatever. Do you stress about what you're going to post, what the caption's going to say? What's your mindset with that?
I actually don't stress what I'm going to post. If anything, I should maybe stress a little bit more. Sometimes I even upload no makeup, like I don't care, frizzy hair. But that also is my fan base. They know that. I've always been like that. I don't have the time or the mental capacity to care about, you know what I mean? I just can't. I also feel like it's impossible for me to please 2 million people. I could look one way and other people aren't happy and and that's just where it's at. So no, I don't stress. If anything, I should. Seriously.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you so much for the time, Sapphire. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And that's today's Good Listen. I'm Joe Pardavila, and if you ever want to reach out to me, I'm on social media at Joe Pardavila and TikTok at J Pardavila, and feel free to shoot me an email and connect and tell your story at joepardavila@protonmail.com. Thanks for listening. Until next time, adios.